Greetings, viewers. Ember66 here, and welcome to the second episode of my new series, Ember Stories. In the last episode, I talked about the story about my gamertag, on how it became EmberGamer66. And if you haven't seen it, then I recommend watching it after watching this episode. And with that said, let's begin today's story on how my OC became a cyborg. Our story begins a few years ago, in a nice and cool early October night. A teenage boy working in a robotics lab has been making an update for his robotic clone. However, like in most stories about sentient robots, the robot, with its sentient chip, being reinstalled had a bug in its code, making it become violent. Our little guy Ember Robot, as his name is, attempts to try and snap his clone out of his T-1000 Terminator state, but utterly fails to get through, and when attempting to eject the sentient ship, he is grabbed by the chest, thrown into the air, and then kicked into a large bookshelf, leaving him winded. Not wounded, winded. In case I'm just gonna say real quick what that. Okay, no. Okay, no, cut that part. Before getting back up to reconfront the robotic clone, the shelf he was thrown into ends up falling on top of him and wounding his body, being nearly fatal. But luck was on his side, as the robotic claw in the lab had ejected the chip and planted a patched one in the chip slot. The T-1000 Terminator became passive again. Reference there. Sensing his master was in danger, the robot clone lifts up the shelf and finds his master, Ember Robot, in a poor state, as some areas looked to be wounded, others caved in, and some looking to have exposed his humanoid insides. After being knocked out cold for a while, Ember Robot had miraculously survived being crushed. Looking at himself, most of his body was replaced with robotic parts, and he was informed by the surgeons that they saved his life, but his body needed some time to recover, as it was being preserved and would take a month to be ready to be reattached. And to keep people from being freaked out, the doctors fit Ember with a flexible and concealing skin suit made of a material known as dragon skin, which is the same durable material that they use on the dummy famously seen in the show Mythbusters. Apparently it's also fireproof, but moving on. After a month of recovery and adjustment, the doctors had managed to get most of the body salvaged, apart from some parts being the stomach, a chunk of face, left arm, right leg, which were beyond saving. And that gave our guy the very recognizable appearance Ember Robot has today. But this story is not over yet. Not just yet. The doctors had informed them that two certain parts were still to be replaced, and the most major one being the lungs. And until they were ready, a special compressor pack was put on Ember's back, and tubes were put into his neck. That went into the trachea, along with a gas mask that would help air intake through his nose and mouth. And after some time, another surgery was performed, giving him a fresh set of robotic lungs. The other part he had to live with until it gave out was his heart. One day, a few days after lung replacement, our guy felt chest pains when waking up, but decided to wait and see if they went away. And after heading to school, he noticed his heart had a bit of an irregular thump. But then, in his second class, the day another student had a bit of a fit of rage that overwhelmed him, he, well, had a heart attack that nearly everyone in the class saw. Doctors are called, he was rushed back to the hospital, and luckily, the new heart was ready. And after a heart transplant, our guy, Ember, now has all the robotic parts he has today. The heart surgery leads us to the end of how my OC, Ember Robot, gained cybernetic parts. But there is one last thing I want to discuss, because our guy just might have some weaponry in his arm. After a few weeks of being a cyborg, our little guy decided to do some work on his arm and add some weapons to his arm, as you know, to make it more cool. Besides, cyborgs look cooler with weapons, right? Anyways, the first being an extendable saber that can adjust its length to 3 feet long, and that thing is kind of sharp. But anyways, the second weapon is a plasma cannon that can fire a blast at max power that creates a 20-foot wide crater that is also 20 feet deep. But anyways, another weapon it has is rockets that open up that can, well, make a super powerful punch that can go through what? The thing that it can go up to is a mildly thick piece of tungsten. So yeah, it's a pretty strong punch. And the last one is a Tesla cannon. It uses brass as plates to conduct electricity, and it can deliver a high-powered lightning blast. So yeah, that's the weapons that he has. So now that we've discussed how my OC became a cyborg, we have reached the conclusion of this episode. And so I end this episode by reminding you to like and subscribe if you want more episodes on the series. And with that, I'm Ember Gamer 66. Thank you for listening.